Good evening. I'd like to call to order the budget workshop of the North Branford Town Council, Thursday, April 4th, 2004 at 6:34 p.m. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not on. Not working. You're mine. It's started.
Standing for a second, I have a special guest here tonight. Mr. Moyo would like to introduce.
Good evening, everybody. Joe Modio, principal at TBS, and I'm very excited to introduce and showcase one of our students, one of our very talented students, who's going to sing the national anthem for us tonight. So please welcome Haley Bayusik.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, nor the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, nor the land of the free and the home of the brave.
American Idol.
Thank you, Haley. That was
Great job.
absolutely beautiful. And we thought it would be a great way to start off tonight. So with that being said, Mayor, I'll turn it back
Very
over to
nice.
you.
Very nice.
No, that's for two cup of tea. This is what we're doing. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Angeloni,
Here.
Deputy Mayor McMillan,
Present.
Councilor Eggleston,
Here.
Councilor Miller,
Here.
Councilor Zampiano.
Here.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the budget overview for 2024-25. At this point in time, the first item is we are going to have a presentation from East Shore Health District. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Oh.
Good evening. Is that working?
Yeah.
It is. That was very special. Thank you. Mayor, Council, I have a presentation. You should have it ahead of time. I also left copies of our annual report at the end, so everyone could have a copy of our annual report. So again, I'm Michael Pascasilla. I'm the CEO for the East Shore District Health Department and also the Director of Health. So it's been a while since I presented, so I'm going to give a little background and then jump into the budget. So East Shore District Health Department is a regional health governmental agency. It serves Branford, East Haven, North Branford. It was established in 1974. We also offer some services outside the district. Some of them are mandated by the state. This year, we're planning our 50th anniversary. In fact, we're looking at a venue here in North Branford. Core staff, full-time, 15 employees, 14 part-time employees, 1 medical advisor. We have students every year, along with some contractors. And our students are typically paid. This year, we have some funding from the State Department of Public Health through the Yale DPH partnership, and each student gets about $3,500. All staff at East Shore District Health Department have bachelor's degree, with 60% having master's degree, and of course we have many certifications mandated to depend on their discipline. We're broken up into 5 divisions. Environmental health, those are the health inspectors that go out and do the different types of inspections, restaurants, different types of food service, wells, septics, complaints. We have public health nursing and some clinical services, a health education and preparedness program, a maternal child health program, a nurturing families network. We're the only health district in the state that has one. And then, of course, we have administration. With public health evolving, we've expanded some of our clinical public health services. So we have an outpatient license. We do a travel vaccination clinic, adult vaccines. We have a mobile public health clinic also, and we do homebound in our towns. So we go to people's home, the most vulnerable populations, to do flu, COVID, and TB direct therapy. Recently, looking at some of the trends that we're seeing with opioids and suicide, we're hiring a full-time harm reduction specialist. It's a New Haven grant. We're part of it. So we're going to have a full-time person over the next 4 years. We're also in the final stages of our national public health accreditation phase. So we'll be one of the few health departments that will have this certification in the state of Connecticut. And then, of course, the mandates, we're all seeing them, not just in public health, but across different disciplines. In our case, we have a new federal food code. We have some housing enforcement changes that are happening that we have to enforce. Water quality, obviously septic, marine, vector control, mosquitoes and ticks. With the changing climate, we're also seeing lots of flooding. So there's water quality issues, failing septic systems, and of course emerging infectious diseases. With respect to our staff does not get, professional staff that do not get overtime except for the collecting bargaining unit, and that would be the health inspectors. Nearly every team member is partly or fully funded. For instance, our maternal child health program, they are 100% fully funded. If I take myself and my deputy director, we're over 50% direct funded and about another 25% indirect funded outside the town funding. Our budget revenues, because we get a lot of grants, some of it is allocated in restricted funding, depending on the program. We have local per capita, which it's set at $13.41. And then our state per capita, which is $2.60 per resident per year. And then there's fee for service. So for the different licenses, restaurant, septic fees, things like that. And then this year, our per capita, we've been told, is level funded from the state of Connecticut. With respect to our local budget, to the town of North Branford, I put this chart together. The part upper left was put as part of our budget request. And so our budget request, it's based on population, it's per capita, spelled out in the general statutes that we have to follow the census data. So this year with the census data, we were told that it's always 2 years behind, but we have to use 2021 because there was a glitch with the state census data. So the population set at 13,498. And so our request is for $181,008. The mosquito control program, that money does not come to East Shore. That sits in the town budget. We just manage the program and sign off on the invoices. All the bills are paid by the town of North Branford. So if you look at last year to this year, our total increase is $7,019. Off to the right, our total budget, just rounding off, is about $2.6 million. All town per capita is about $931,700, which makes up about 36.14%. And then in North Branford's case, our total budget request is $181,008, which makes up about 7.03% of our budget. With our working with the board of directors, with our local per capita, it has been reasonable and it's fair, and pretty much in line with what we've seen in other health districts. Some of the increases that are out of our control are like the MERS program. That's when the district was formed, we were part of the MERS program. That's the Municipal Retirement Systems Pension, and that's set and it keeps going up. That's 16.68% plus a little over $3,000 fee. Healthcare, we're part of the state plan, so that plan this year hasn't gone up that much. It's about 3%. In the past, it's been as high as 14%. Our fringe benefit, which we try to, as much as we can control, it's set about 51%. We haven't raised any fees to our businesses in the last 6 years. And again, we're finalizing national public health accreditation, and that's a fee of about $5,600 per year. And what that does is it opens the door for more competitive grants for us. The next 2 pages, I'm not going to spend too much time unless you have any questions, but it's our proposed budget and the different line items for our grants and revenue. And again, looking at the per capita, the way the general statutes spell out health districts is that you look at the population, you set a per capita fee, the population goes up, the fee goes up. If it goes down, it goes down, and that's how we do our budget. So this year, to kind of sum it up, East Shore District Health Department is looking for a modest increase of a little over $7,000. As we have been doing, we tailor fit our services to each of our towns. So we have our core funding, and then we do tailor fitting depending on the town's needs. Per capita for the state is flat funded. And we're not just a department, we're a regional public health agency, full-time, full service, and this year we're celebrating 50 years. And so with that, at a high level, just want to give a quick overview, and if you have any questions.
So the per capita charge of $13.41, which, derives our budget amount that is in our budget for this year, what exactly do we get? Do all residents get the same services? And are there services that they would have to pay for in addition to what we're paying the district?
So in general, the services are the same across all 3 communities, but we do some tailor fitting. For instance, if we look at some of our other towns versus North Branford, there's more septic and wells in North Branford, so obviously we do more of those kind of services here in this community versus some of our other communities that don't have as much septic and well. But when it comes to the basic needs, as far as inspections go, they're all the same across the board. But again, we do some tailor fitting. Some of our public health education programs, working with community and our town partners, we will tailor fit some different programming.
Okay, so that programming, if our senior center or park and rec department wanted a specific program and they contacted you, you would come to the town and do it free of charge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's part of that's part of the
Yeah,
fee.
that's part of the per capita. So if there's any specific, and we've done that in the past, and we'll go to the library and offer different programming. When it comes time to flu clinics, for instance, we'll work with the towns to decide where they're going to be for the different clinics.
So we all know after COVID that there was, there seemed to be a shortage of staffing and restaurant, like inspections that should have been done. Are inspections, does the establishment pay for those, or is that part of the fee that we pay?
That's part, so the establishments do pay a license fee, and all communities charge that. During COVID, we lost 70% of our staff. And so in the world of public health, our workforce has really gone through some significant changes. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow on it with the state. So we're trying to recruit and keep employees as best as we can. We've done salary surveys. The other thing that's happening is today's workforce, especially our youth, it's changing a bit with some of the benefits and some of the requirements. So we're trying to be as flexible as we can.
So if that's part of our fee that we pay for, and you've gone through this, surge where you didn't have enough employees, you had a large percentage there, were fees adjusted to account for that because we weren't receiving all of the services?
So when we lost our staff, we replaced them. So we do have staff in place. Some of the staff so there was a time we were not allowed to do inspections. And so then those staff members were used in other ways. For instance, doing COVID clinics. It was all hands on deck. And doing some limited spot inspections. So our resources very quickly had to be mobilized in different ways.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. And again, I left our annual report that really drills down in all the services and North Branford specific activities we do. And, I know it's thick, but if you do have a few minutes, please glance through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So tonight, we are going to go through, on the town side, the operational budget, capital expenditures, the capital budget, and then also do the Board of Education. And since we don't have any order on our agenda, I will do the Board of Education a favor, and I'll start with you tonight, so you don't have to sit here through the whole thing. You're welcome to stay through the whole meetings, so we will start with the Board of Education.
We took one.
Can I just start off with questions?
Now we've got double.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm the new person, if everyone knows, on the council. And the whole problem is I understand these meetings are for, I did write notes down because this is about that these meetings are for the 24-25 budget. So I have a few questions. So why are we asking for some of this information from years ago from the DOE, from the Board of Ed? And if there are questions about past expenses, would it be better at a separate meeting or a small group between council and Board of Education members instead of doing it through this process? Because I know we sent them a lot of questions the past couple of days, and I just think we're here for a budget, not for QE issues. So I'm just trying to understand what's going on, because I'm confused.
Well, some of that information is needed in order to help us make our decision on their current budget request.
Requesting information from a couple years back is going to help. I mean, they went through it last year and the year before, so it shouldn't have been answered back then, or?
What specific question?
Well, I don't have the list in front of me. We're asking, what did they spend, what grant money did they get?
Because the only reason, and I asked that question, is because I tried to find that information through their minutes, and I could not see, and they have asked for additional funding through ARPA grants, which is the town's, the town received money for that. Most towns did not use ARPA money for boards of education because boards of education received their own funding, their own grant sources. And so I tried to find the information in their minutes as to how much they received and how it was spent, and I couldn't find that information. So,
And then as far as the progress reports that was requested by one of the members, what is that?
progress reports.
As far as the students, the recent, there was 2 more questions or 3 more questions by Councilman Zampano.
Yeah, I asked those questions because I watched 2 presentations that spoke a lot about our sporting activities, our teachers and their accolades, but I don't recall hearing anything about how we measure academic achievement and how we promote that to the public so they can see the progression year over year of us getting, the school system getting better. I think that's a pretty important question to ask.
Okay.
I think even chiming in there with a liaison. In the past, we have had one. I don't know if you have a liaison right now to the Board of Ed, but that certainly would be an improved way for the communication to ask those questions, to be able to do that in a different forum than in a meeting like this. I'm assuming the other departments have liaisons, that board members go to meetings. We don't have that. We're the largest population, we have the most square footage, we have the most employees, we have the biggest budget. It might be a good idea to appoint a liaison, so you don't have to go through a lengthy presentation of things that could have been done.
Well, actually, there were 2 liaisons prior, and we would, because I was one of them, and we would come to your finance subcommittee meetings, and those were discontinued.
They're done at the board meeting. They're
And
done during the board meeting.
so I've been coming recently to meetings, and I did sit through your budget presentation and workshop through there, but from what I understand through the finance, what is done at the board meeting, there's not a lot of discussion there. There was the last 2 meetings because it was budget time, but the other ones I've been sitting through, there really wasn't a lot there. So when it was done before as a subcommittee, there was more of an open dialogue. I'm just saying that I've been going, I know it's hard for a lot of the other people, and we don't have liaisons to departments, we have liaisons to boards and commissions. So that's the difference. But
Well, we are the Board of Ed.
right.
Well, there's
Yes.
one other thing I just wanted to comment, Craig, because I would think that the Board of Ed would be more than happy, this would be a pleasurable moment for them to tell us, at least for me, because I've been on the council for, it's my 3rd or 4th term, and I haven't heard it yet. And, my kids went through the school system, so I'd like to hear it,
We present at our board meetings. We go through every year in the spring, we do our testing, and we come back and we report out on every grade level for every state test that we assess it, and we do all the growth and progress and
right.
do a
But
good lengthy-
that's all well and good.
Right.
But what the presentation I heard was,
You're saying the previous 2, that
Yeah.
the board members did.
that we just watched or listened to, and that's all well and good, but,
Right.
you know, academic is where it's at.
This is why we're here, right, Tom?
Right.
Anyway, I think we can move on.
Yep.
It is, the administrators will get up and discuss. There were, I believe, 5 questions and multiple requests, so you're going to get reams of data tonight. We're going to move through it as quickly as we possibly can. We don't want to be here till midnight. So that being said, the first slide just talks about the staff breakdown and student enrollment. In the first presentation, excuse me, you did hear from, I believe, our board chairperson about the class sizes in each of our buildings. It's different in an elementary school, middle school, and high school. Obviously, in a comprehensive high school, you run advanced placement classes. You may run a class with 7 or 8 students, so it's kind of skewed when you look at that. It's pretty straightforward in a K-5 building. We were running at about 18 to 21 students per class over the last several years. Our enrollment levels have flattened out. We've been in that mid-1500, 1550. We're going to go up a little bit next year. We've been averaging about 120 to 125 students per class coming in, and I believe our kindergarten enrollment right now is over 100, and we usually have the influx of students during the summer month. So that's where, go back one slide. The only additional staffing that we've had in the last few years has been through the pre-K program, the coaching model that we adopted. We have 4 coaches right now. We had an additional kindergarten teacher and a social worker during the pandemic. These were all grant related. When I say all, social worker and coaches, we received a grant for school improvement, and then we used monies for a social worker with all the mental health issues that we were seeing. Okay. This is just a quick overview. You will receive this. I will hand this out to you. You can look at each grade level, the number of students in each grade level, and then the number of sections going back to what you requested, 16 all the way through to current enrollment. You can see we had some big classes, 182 in that 8th grade class back in 16. Right now we've been in the 120 to 125 range. Head count comparison, that goes to all of the certified and non-certified employees and breaks it down to a total number of employees with our enrollment in the district from 18, 17, 16, and my eyes are going, I can't see that last column, so you'll have it. Same thing, enrollment projections. 2021 head count. Employees and salaries. More enrollment, 22-23 projected. We use NESDEC. We work on a 5-year basis, and they do projections for us based on a number of data points. Okay? State and federal funding, that was the second question. Obviously, Martha Pond is here tonight. He's our business manager. That was one of the questions of what we did receive. We can go through that. And if there's any questions, I do have handouts for every grant that we did receive. So Martha, I'm going to turn this over to you just to go through. Obviously, I'm not going to read every one, but if you want to just give an overview and talk about some of them.
Okay, so what you see on the screen, and then as Scott said, we'll hand out for you, is a list of all the grant monies that we received in regard to COVID, because that was the specific request. So what this spreadsheet has on it is the date that the grant was awarded, the name of the grant, the purpose of the grant, the award dates. So many of these grants you'll see are 2-year or 2.5-year grants, so we listed the dates for you. For example, the first grant, the ESSER grant, started in March of 2020 and ran through September of 2022. The award amount was $64,976. We spent a total of $64,491.87, and then the balance remaining in that grant was $484. the status there lists the grant as closed, and then we listed out the use of funds. So for this particular grant, we hired an additional third grade teacher to reduce the class size, and that was a authorized use of ESSA under COVID. So that's basically what you'll see as you go through the pages. I just want to point out that all of these grants are reimbursement. So that means on a monthly basis, I will go into the State of Connecticut e-grant system and request funds based on the amount that has actually been expended. And then all of these grants are part of our annual audit. I have to report them in several different ways. One's on the EFS, which is the Educational Financial System. That encompasses all the expenditures of the district and also includes the in-kind funds that we receive from the town. And then ED 141 are reports specifically on grants. And then all of this is part of our audits. And if the grant is over a certain amount, sometimes it's $250,000, sometimes it's $300,000. The federal government changes the limit. It's called the federal single audit. Then if it exceeds that amount, then the auditors have to audit that particular grant separately and then do an entirely separate list of testing and review. So that's what the spreadsheet is.
I'm going to hand this out to you so you have it.
I was going to say, this is all student. Okay, this is all student achieved.
Student achievement.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next up. Pre-K, there's been a number of questions historically about the pre-K program and its history in North Branford, so I'm going to have Sarah Alberti. She's going to take the mic and go through our history and answer any questions that you specifically have that came through that question.
Hi, everyone. A lot of this. Sorry, I'm going to stay. I think the line is ready. Sorry, John. I'm Sarah Alberti. I'm the Director of Special Services. It's nice to see all of you. Just to give you a little bit of background on preschool in North Branford, prior to 2018, so I wasn't here in 2018 either, North Branford preschool consisted of one preschool classroom. It was an integrated special education preschool classroom. The AM was for 3-year-olds, the PM was for 4-year-olds. We then had a program that was called Smart Start, and that was a preschool program that was grant funded, and it lived in the annex behind the Jerome Harrison Elementary School. Historically, the Smart Start classroom has about 15 students, predominantly general education students. When we, so in fiscal year 2018, we started receiving that grant, the $75,000, which funded one classroom, one teacher, as well as one para. The grant itself is intended to support 15 students in total. The Smart Start grant is geared towards providing equitable access for quality preschool programs to students who may not otherwise have that opportunity. So there is a stipulation in the grant that we are looking for students to be at 75% of the state median income. They have to be below that. And so we're looking at I apologize, I'm getting over a cold and my brain is not working super great. But we are looking at providing access to students who wouldn't have the finances otherwise. And so that began in 2018. So we had the preschool program through PRIDE, which was the Special Education Integrated Program, and then the Smart Start Grant Classroom. In fiscal year 2022, the state opened up an additional funding opportunity, so we were able to fund 15 more students, which provided funding for 1 teacher and 1 para as well. Again, providing access for 15 total students, still maintaining the requirement of 75% of the state median income for people to be eligible to apply for that. Around the same time, we had determined that our PRIDE program, or what is our integrated preschool classroom, was not meeting the needs of our students. We were ending up with classrooms that were predominantly special education students, way more than the 50% that we look for in order to maintain it as an integrated program and not a self-contained program. And so we added an additional classroom on, and we turned them into full-day programs. So this past school year was our first pilot of full-day programs for 4-year-olds, as well as 1 full-day program, the full-day program for 3-year-olds. So this past year, we had 5 classrooms in total. I think we might be on the next page now, possibly. Okay. So for the 2023-2024 school year, we had 5 classrooms in total, 2 full-day 3-year-old programs, 3 full-day 4-year-old programs. We also renamed the preschool programs rather than having 2 of the classrooms called Smart Start, which is the name of the grant, and 1 of them called Pride. We changed the name to be North Branford Public School Preschool Program. All 5 classrooms are integrated, so we were able to spread our students out across 5 classrooms. We were able to provide full-day programming. What we were seeing prior to this were students that weren't ready to engage in a full-day program when it came time for kindergarten. It's a really long day, and we weren't providing them with the best opportunity. So this past year, we've been able to do that for our students. We've maintained our 50-50 ratio, and we're seeing students that are well on their way to being able to handle a full-day kindergarten program, and it's exciting to see the progress that they're going to make. For this next year, 2024-2025, we are looking at 4 classrooms in total. We are going to be going back to our our half-day 3-year-old program. The reason for this is because, 1, the main push for us to do the full-day 3-year-old program was we weren't finding families that were able to take on a half-day program for their 3-year-olds. What that means is they need to be able to have an alternative placement for them for the other half of the day, possible transportation needs, and so we were ending up with lower enrollment in those half-day programs. What we've been able to do this year is to provide an incentive for those to enroll in the 3-year-old program by telling them that they will be grandfathered into the full-day 4-year-old program if they enroll in the 3-year-old program. So right now our numbers look very good. We're going to be able to maintain our 50-50 ratio of general education students to special education students. We're also going to have a 3-4 mixed age group classroom. This is really to accommodate for the change in the kindergarten age. As we discussed in the last meeting, the cutoff moved from December 31st to September 1st. And so while we are allowing for a transition period this year for our students, those students in preschool are going to increase next year. That is not going to change. And so we want to make sure that we're prepared for them. We're going to be having kids longer. Instead of having kids until they're 5, we might be having some of these kids until they're 6. And we do have an obligation to provide those services for our special education students, therefore opening up spaces for their same age typical peers to maintain the 50-50 ratio. We will then also have 2 4-year-old programs, full day, 15 students. Approximately half of those students will be special education. It's important for you all to know that while we can predict fairly closely what our 4-year-old program numbers are going to be, the 3-year-old number is a moving target. When we receive students from birth to 3, we receive them no matter what, implementing services on their 3rd birthday. We average between 19 and 21 referrals every year coming from birth to 3. So while we might start a classroom with 2 special education students, we're going to end that year with 6, maybe 7. And when you look at a 3-year-old classroom, we are not exceeding 15 students in that space. It's just not possible. And so while we are reducing from 5 classrooms this year to 4 classrooms next year, I feel very confident that we're still going to be able to meet the needs of our students. we're going to be able to meet the needs of our families in our district and continue to move forward making progress, because with the change in kindergarten age, we need to continue to provide these supports, and the impact of what we do in preschool isn't just going to go to kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, it's going to be long lasting. Preschool has a ton of research behind it that supports both a decrease in dropout rates, decrease in crime, and an increase in students' attendance, not just during their formative years, but well beyond high school. Are there any questions about preschool?
Yes, so the Smart Start grant that you had on the previous slide that said it paid for one teacher and one...
One teacher and one parent.
So is it just one grant that it, or, because I saw two different things.
There's two. So the initial grant came out in 2017-18, and that was the initial $75,000. Because of the impact of COVID, and the students we're talking about in preschool right now are COVID babies. These are babies that were born during 2020, 2021. And so the second grant, the second $75,000 opportunity came because of COVID. And so that was the one in fiscal year 2022. Right now, both of those grants are in the budget for the governor. We're not going to know on the date on whether or not that's passed until, I believe, May 8th. But that is intended to be continuing through.
So then the other two classrooms are in your budget,
Correct.
because there's no grants
Correct.
for those
Yep.
on there. And we do not charge for preschool, correct?
We do not.
Are there other districts surrounding us that do not charge? Is that a common practice that you do not charge?
It's about 50-50. It really depends on the district you're talking about. If you're talking about a Guilford and Madison, yes, they do charge. If you're talking about an East Haven or a Branford, it really depends.
Okay.
But we also are looking at districts that don't qualify for the Smart Start grant. So the demographics of our town allow us to be eligible for the Smart Start grant because it's looking at the socioeconomic status of the district as a whole. And so if we were to start charging our families, those 30 students that come to us because they qualify for the Smart Start grant, they're not going to come to us because they can't afford to pay. That's where that income comes into place. These aren't kids that are going to go and enroll in another preschool program. These are kids that are going to go home. And then they're not going to come to us until they're in kindergarten or first grade. And we know from experience and from the research that these kids need to be in a quality preschool program. So the Smart Start grants that we have, their intention is to supplement what we're able to do, not supplant it. Not we're going to take away from others because we're getting more money for the grant. This is to provide more opportunities for equitable access. And so right now, if we're looking at those two classrooms that we are funding for through the Board of Ed, those would be in existence anyways because we have to maintain a 50-50 ratio for gen ed to special ed. So we're not going to be, if we take this grant away, we're serving fewer. And the fewer that really need the services. So what we're asking the board to pay for, what we're coming to you guys with in terms of what's in our budget, is what's already in existence because of the laws and regulations around special education supports and services under IDEA Part B. That's always been in place. So if we lost these grants, those two classrooms still exist. They're not going to go away. And if we start charging, you can't charge special ed students. So you're only charging general education students. So then we look at our numbers dropping and it becomes a snowball effect where we may not be maintaining our 50-50 ratio, in which turn we would be cited by the state for not providing FAPE. There's all of these things that cycle together. And so this is one piece of it, and we're very fortunate to live in a town that we're eligible for this grant. And if we were to lose one of those, we have to figure out something to do because I don't think that we're in a position to turn those 15 additional students away.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, well.
Okay, the next question was for budget cuts. I'm going to hand this out to all of you before we go through it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The specific question, were there any cuts prior to the superintendent's budget coming forward? So you'll see if you look at the sheet, or if you can see the overhead, yes, the total number of cuts that we made prior to coming to our Board of Education was $895,146, or approximately 3%. So we started off with a budget of just over 10%. The administrative team narrowed that down to 7.72%, with our status quo budget being at 6.2 something. Didn't interrupt that. So you can go through, and it's broken out by salary benefits, what's not in that budget. The grade 3 math teacher we removed. Go back to that first slide for me, Tom. There was another K-5 math interventionist piece that we removed. So it'll go through and it'll walk you through all of the salary benefits that we took out of the budget. Our professional development, we scaled that down by $10,000. Professional services, we scaled that down by $3,000. Next slide. Tech service facilities by $78,000. And we're really hedging on this mandated HVAC. And John Florio will speak to you about that. We think it's going to be higher than this, but we had to find money somewhere, and we pared it down to $15,000 to $16,000 for these mandated HVAC studies that are going to come in by independent analysis to see how our schools are doing with that. Purchase services, we took it up to $32,000 out there. Athletics, $55,000. Tuition, with any movement within the district for health placement or students returning to the district. And then supplies, I'm not going to read through these, obviously. Equipment and furniture, $66,000. Dues and fees, we whittled $3,800 down, totaling to $895,146. I don't know who asked the question, so I'm kind of just speaking to everyone to...
Well, Ron asked the question. He couldn't be here tonight, but his question was, what cuts did the Board of Education make to the superintendent's budget before voting on it?
So they adopted the 7.70.
So they
budget.
adopted as presented.
As presented.
Right, okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you wanted. So we started at 10, we presented at 7.7. They accepted that, brought that forward, and the status quo was just over 6%. Okay? Okay, items purchased over town threshold. I have John Florio here. He's going to speak to any projects where the monies came from, if they're at capital, and he'll answer any questions about bidding process.
Hey, Scott, real quick question for you, just so I want to better understand this, and I apologize. So when you say status quo is at let's call it 6.1, 6.2%?
Moving everything forward.
Forward, okay, so nothing changes, just contractual changes that create...
Contractual changes, obligations, what we put in for heating, fuel, transportation, just carrying.
Okay, it's important, I want to make sure that was out there, so that we'll understand that there's obviously an increase in cost. I want to make sure that was understood.
Yeah.
Superintendent said you guys had a question on what was purchased over the town threshold over the past 2 years. We have 3 items. Unit ventilator, that's the second purchase of the unit ventilators. At Totucket Valley, that project was not bid out for the specific reason that Magic Air is the only company in the United States that makes hydronic unit ventilators. And RA Novia is the state of Connecticut distributor. There's no bid process because that's the only way you can purchase them. That was approved by a capital improvement budget by the town. The lighting upgrade to Totucket Valley, that was a Wallingford Electric rebate job. You pick off of the group that Wallingford Electric tells you to. There's a list of vendors that they approve. We approved the one that they advised for North Branford, which was Titan Solutions. There's no bid process there, and the town got the rebate. The cooling tower replacement at Jerome Harrison, there were 4 certified bids that came in. 38,890,850 was the lowest bidder. That was an in-town vendor. Dependable Heating, you'll see the other 3 that bid it. 54,600, 56,568, 71,243. We followed the rules, and we picked the lowest bidder, and the job is done. Any other questions? As far as the superintendent's cuts, where he noticed, where he told you where the $15,000 per building, just want to bring you up to speed. Next year, the state of Connecticut starts their HVAC air quality laws go into effect 2025. That means we can no longer maintain our equipment ourselves. There is a third-party HVAC engineer that has to come in and assess all of your equipment. Make a report to the state, and then a third-party vendor now has to come in and maintain and service your equipment. I'm going to tell the town council right now, be prepared to pay the bill. Because once they start going through the equipment, they pick every little thing. If you don't comply to the state funding will be affected. Right now, we do it all in-house. We don't run to you for anything, we're not a squeaky wheel. I handle under my facilities budget, we do the work in-house. We're no longer going to be able to do that according to the state. So, price for maintaining your 6 school buildings now is going to rise. You need to be prepared for that in the upcoming budget.
Have we completed the installation of all the ventilators?
The unit ventilators will be completed this summer.
Okay.
The reason why we completed them last summer, same thing as everywhere across the country. We could not get the electrical supplies in time to power up the new ventilators. Everything electrical-wise has been a year out backward. We needed transformers. I couldn't take the old ones out because the new ones wouldn't work, so I had to leave the old ones in until we had the transformers on scene. Transformers arrived long after school began. We'll complete the ventilator job this summer.
So the ventilator, you just talked about the state taking over your, next year, the state's taking over. So is the ventilators and the cooling tower, is that all part of the process for you to be up to code?
The projects we have now, the cooling tower replacement is done.
Okay.
So when they visit Jerome Harrison, your engineer that's going to come and view, they're going to see, oh, you got a brand new cooling tower. You get an A+ on that one. Okay, but the rest of the equipment in Jerome Harrison is 25 years old now.
Yeah.
So it depends on the engineer's assessment. We do a fantastic job maintaining these schools and the equipment involved. But when it comes to outside vendors, they're not going to be like we are. I buy correctly. There's no markup. You're not paying labor. It's all going to go away. Even though we are fully licensed by the state of Connecticut to maintain these buildings, they're taking it out of the hands of the municipalities because some municipalities were not maintaining the equipment.
So basically what you're saying is when the state comes over and they do an assessment, the engineers come in and do an assessment.
It's not the state. We hire a third-party engineer.
So the third-party engineer comes in and does the assessment, right? Let's say Jerome Harrison and you fail. you, John Florio, and your team are unable to repair it
According to the new regulations.
or bring it up to code. So then we have to hire a third party. Okay.
So the cost of bringing in an outside vendor compared to how we do it in-house now, is going to quadruple.
I think this is an appropriate question. I don't want to go there right now. So, thank you.
Anything else I can answer your question?
Nope, that was good. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get into the academic achievement piece. I'm going to have Dr. Welch and administrators speak to that. But, you know, it was mentioned earlier, Tom, about, you know, what was presented in the first two meetings by our board chair and Judy Bannon. And I had a chance to reflect a little bit about after both meetings and sitting through and looking at the slideshows and the immense amount of pride that they were presenting with. Obviously, Judy growing up or actually working in the town, having her children go through and looking at the table here, who had children go through the school system, what their experiences were, still have children here. I look around the room and, you know, Franny Marola and his daughter, Steve, and their experiences in North Branford, and what they're doing now. Ronnie Nofrio's here with his children. Jimmy's a graduate. He's the chief. Danny Santantano is, you know, second in charge here, a graduate of our school. I could go around, and I don't mean to leave anyone out here. It speaks volumes to their readiness. Not only their readiness in academics, but as a person, as a quality person with values and character and morals. And that's something that we hold true to, and we do a wonderful job keeping those standards in the forefront. And that's why our graduates are so successful. You're looking back last year, our class that just graduated, 121 kids graduated last year. 89% or 109 will continue their education after graduation. 89%. 78% are planning to attend four-year colleges. 22% are planning to attend two-year college or voc schools. 2 students plan on working full-time. 2 students are enlisting in the military. Thank you for their service. And 2 students will attend our 18 to 21-year-old program, which we currently house at the Auger House, which you know we've leased from the town, and John Florio did an amazing job retrofitting that home for our program, and it's second to none. I will put our special ed programs against anyone in the state of Connecticut. And I say that with conviction, with the opportunities that our students have and how they are truly enmeshed in the school community. And 7 students were undecided with what they were going to do. You've heard me speak about the manufacturing. I will continue to preach and support and focus on that. I'll go find the money. I will get creative. We will bring that to North Branford. It's something that we're looking at numbers and percentages of kids who really shouldn't go to college, that should go into the trades. And it's evident with what we're seeing today with our inability to fill that workforce. And this would give, I believe, 40% of our students the opportunity to walk out of this high school, go right into a career path. You look at the major defense industries here. Electric Boat is desperately searching for 5,000 new employees because of their new class of submarines. They're looking for welders and other skilled laborers that we could do right here. They would go in with such an advantage. And if they chose to go to school after, they had that opportunity. That's the way we have to start thinking. Looking at that class last year, the high achievers, 2 kids went to Ivy League schools. We had a student at Cornell and a student at Yale. Not many schools in the area can say that. That's the level of rigor that our high school and the comprehensiveness of the courses allowed for them to take. 12 college courses that we have here. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Welch. He's going to speak through a little bit about the philosophy of academic achievement, what it means, how we assess our students, how we prepare our students for each transition as they move through their 4 years of high school and then onto the workforce and beyond. Dr. Welch.
All right, thank you for having me. Those of you who know me, I can speak about achievement and students' cognitive ability, intelligence, how we measure that for days with you. So I wanted to characterize it and put some perspective around it, that we look at academic achievement in a variety of ways, and that's from school to school. Ultimately, the way that we measure success, there's no single measure that will give us that. So when we look at test scores, people have heard me say this before, yes, it's something that we are held accountable to by the state, sometimes by taxpayers, community members, but ultimately it is not predictive of a student's success. There is a ton of research out there in the SAT. The SAT does not predict college and future success. Our standardized tests don't define a student's career path or future outcomes. So a lot of what you see on that slide, I'm not going to read it all to you. There are these many other ways that we measure academic achievement and success, and looking at the kids in holistic ways across their schools. Obviously, our charge is to get them to be college and career post-secondary ready for whatever field that they choose. We look at a lot of other measures like surveys and things like that to know how we're doing. We have focus group with our students who graduate to move on and to know how that they're doing. So I just don't want us to think of student achievement as, the Smarter Balance score or the SAT score. Yes, those are important factors that we deal with, but that's not how we define and look at success. We also have a measure. Every year the state comes out with accountability scores for schools, and those are publicly available. Anybody as a member can go on a state site and look at those. And they look at, again, standardized measures, how we're doing on those tests, what are attendance rates, how do kids perform on physical fitness tests, how are they doing toward that being college and career ready. And then we report out every fall, as Scott said, to the Board of Ed in a comprehensive way, which is what you have in your hands. You have the last 5 years of those data reports that are comprehensive and how we perform on those scores. They compare cohorts of groups of kids. They compare year to year. They compare towns, during towns. So we look at it across the board. The next slide.
Where do we come on?
What you were provided, again, with all of those presentations, I ran some additional data that you have in the last couple of sheets there that was around the specific request, looking back 5 years on those measures. I cautioned you at the end, obviously we had a year in there where there was very little data collected on COVID-19, but aside from that, I can go into further detail on the packets that you have if you would like me to do that. I can highlight it for you.
I guess I just have one question. So when we go from year to year, can you actually measure if we've dropped a couple points, or if we, I don't know if there's a number that you use at the end of, because I figured it was something like, all these, it's not just one test score and it's once and done. I get that, but are you able to measure it year over year to see where something fell off or you had a big improvement and things like that?
Yeah, so I think I can answer that in 2 ways, Tom. So we have that accountability score that we're assigned by the state, looking at kind of those measures, and it's a growth model, so it's much better than what we've had in the past for student achievement. And they give us a score each year for each school, how they're doing, and they look at that from year to year. We look at our growth. It's really looking at how do you move students, and particularly how do you move the students that are high need students. So we look at those scores every year. We can see how we're performing. I can say to you that North Branford is doing well. Pawtucket Valley in particular is a school of distinction in the state, one of less than 10% schools in all of the state that have shown the highest growth that we make on those scores. For 2 years they've done that. All our other scores are performing at the expected or higher than expected rate according to that. Aside from that measure, all administrators are constantly looking at their student outcomes, test scores, how their kids are performing, behavioral data, attendance data, and they're generating action reports and things that they're going to do for their school each year to kind of improve what they might notice. Maybe 1 year it's a dip in language arts scores, so they create a plan to address that. Maybe 1 year it's a dip in attendance, and they need to look at that. Maybe there's a behavioral spike among kids, and they need to look at that. So every administrator looks at that in their building. We kind of look at that from a district perspective and how we're doing across the schools. And, it's comprehensive, I would say that.
You can also track the same class over time because class makeup does change.
Yeah.
So
which
you
we
can
do with those standardized tests, but again, I don't want us to just think
That's the only
Test
measure.
tells everything about how a kid performs.
I'm sorry, I don't think the testing, the standardized testing actually tells the story, because
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
not about, Scott said something at the beginning about the academics, and I wrote it down and he brought it up. The percent of students that actually graduate. What's the percentage of students that actually graduate, go to a 2-year,
Yeah.
4-year, vocational, right, and go into the job force,
Right.
right?
Every year we report out on that.
And it's not the testing, the scores, or where you rank.
Exactly
You
right.
can't go by that. Now, I don't know how far you can go back and look at the previous students that have graduated that actually have gone on to get master's degrees. Those would be probably 10-year out students, right? Do you have,
Yeah, the high school does look at that. I don't know if they look at it over time, but every year they look at how their kids are doing a couple years out. They invite them back to come to the school and talk about how they're doing, what they pursued, what their experience gave to them at the high school, how it helped pave their path.
right. So it's not about testing scores.
No, it's not.
Because you can have a really bad student, doesn't like school,
Right.
right? And he could be a productive member of society, become a millionaire in business, as an example. I'm just saying, that doesn't say, well, he was just not a good student. There's a lot of factors that go into what you're talking about.
Right, and we try to talk to kids about that too, at all levels, that it's not that.
It's hard to get through to them at that age. So,
But the way that we approach testing, it does, but this isn't, we're not using this as a defining criteria. It's your work habits, it's your perseverance, and those are the things that we're driving and building that over time. How do you think? What's your capability there? How do we teach you how to do that and problem solve? And how do we teach you to value education and continue to want to learn and develop skills in an area of interest?
that's the basic part of being a teacher.
Right. And I think what Scott said is a really important point, that so many of our students, whether they're in an Ivy League, whether they go to the workforce, the military, a millionaire, whatever it is, they come back and they come and visit our school. They're complimentary of the school experience and helping them get to that path. And they still feel connected to the people that helped them get there.
So, thank
That's
you.
good. Thank you.
Sure.
Carter, where'd you go to high school?
Branford High School.
Megan, where'd you go to high school? Mr. Downs, where'd you go to high school?
Wyman Hall. Just kidding.
That makes sense. I've only got about 30 or 40 more slides. I apologize, and then we'll finish up. Tom? I have no more slides. Are there any questions? I mean, first I want to thank the administrative team for, in a short period of time, putting all of this together. This was a lot of legwork, and it was a very healthy exercise. So as much as, this was a grind, and it was a grind for them with running their buildings and taking care of business and having a half day on Wednesday to put their nose to the grindstone and get this done. They didn't blink, and I want to compliment them and thank them. I want to recognize Mr. Steffler. He is a finalist for the Principal of the Year in the state of Connecticut. And again, I'll speak on behalf of the Board of Ed. We're very fortunate to have these people raising your children and in our school system. They truly care about the well-being, the safety, and them being the best version of themselves. They take it personally, and they're beyond vested in your children's future. And it's a great place to be. There is no perfect, but we're pretty darn good. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, what we continue to accomplish. Judy mentioned, our school safety and us being back in school when everyone was closed during the pandemic. And that's because this administrative team, their lead, and the teachers' trust in that we were doing what was in the best interest of students. And our security in all of our buildings, I'll put it up against anyone in the state and or the nation for what we do to keep our kids safe. And that's a tribute, and I thank the council for supporting those endeavors and continuing to support us. So if there's nothing else for us, that's it. And do we know, we're on break next week. Do we have another meeting date in mind, or?
Tuesday, I believe there's a meeting.
There's another budget workshop on Tuesday, the 9th.
Next week?
Next week. I'll let you know if you need to be there, if the Board of Ed is on the agenda for that night. You may not be. I know you're on
Okay.
vacation.
Yeah, I might be
And I
sick
appreciate
along the way.
the admin, being here tonight, because I know they're not generally here next week when they're on vacation.
Right.
So thank you for putting everything together and getting it to us now and being here, able to answer our questions.
Right, thank you.
I likewise appreciate you guys, the effort you put together for this. Some of this is not particularly germane to the budgetary process, but it is important to know that overall, there's what the school system does. All they say, all ships rise in a high tide, or wherever that colloquialism goes. The school system brings in more folks to come to this town, and essentially more tax revenue as businesses want to come here. I mean, as Carter and I went to school together here, I graduated from North Branford. One of the reasons why people moved here was had a great school system. That's what we always heard, right? As we grew up, had a great school system. So it is important that we talk about these things, because it does affect the overall process of who's coming into the town and how we're going to continue to grow this town. So thank you for putting this stuff together. It's very interesting. Appreciate the effort and the work you guys do.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you too, because I asked some of those questions, but it's not only it's not only do I want to hear it, but this is a public, and hopefully the public's listening to this, or they can listen to it, because it's important for them to know. And sometimes I don't think our citizens understand what we have and what we don't have, and I think it's important, and you guys did a great job.
Look around.
Yeah.
This is living proof of the cooperation of town and education.
Yeah.
Now we got to figure out how to pay for it.
I like seeing the support you have behind you. No, right here at the table. Each one of them.
I thought you meant a security guard.
Yeah, that's it.
That's why he's here. Thank you.
So you do have, Scott, before you leave, and your admin can probably leave if you want, but you do have some items in the capital budget that I'll quick switch to that.
Okay.
Just so that, then you're done
Okay.
with all of that, okay? So let me just get that out.
Are they on overtime? Are they on overtime? Are we paying for them on overtime?
There is no overtime.
Thank you.
Next week they get off.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to quick switch over to capital, so we can deal with the Board of Education. We went over this in your workshop, and you kind of explained your rationale on there in regards to that. So there were a number of items that were presented that were approved by the Board of Education and moved forward to the Town Council. And the two that were brought forward to the council, which were manager proposed, and I know there was a meeting with the town manager in regards to this. So one of them was the HVAC system at Jerome Harrison for $140,000, and the other one is Jerome Harrison and TVS paving, which this originally was just Jerome Harrison paving was approved 3 years ago for $90,000, and that money is still sitting there. And what's in the budget here is $60,000, which is additional, and that number was derived based on the bid that went out last year and what it came in at. But I know that there has been talk that the numbers have come in, and so I don't know what those are. We don't have a breakdown on those, and they're much greater than this. So I just want to see once what is that 60,000 a valid, you know, is that a correct number?
No, right now, when we talked about paying you back 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we looked at both Jerome Harrison and Tiltucky Valley, and we were gonna do specific sections, we were gonna pay specific sections. There wasn't enough money in there to do what we needed to do at the time, because 90 was in, but the patching was gonna equal up to 150,000. We didn't do it. We figured we'd maybe put more money in, and so we had enough money. Over this course of these 2 years now, or 3, as this is going on, we walked both schools. This is the public works director, and determined that there is no need to patch anymore. They're done. Patchwork would be useless.
Wasted.
They both need paving. Jerome Harrison's the original paving, 25 years old. Tiltucky Valley is the original paving, they're over 40 years old. The front's been paved once, but not the side. They're both deteriorating. We did have Tilcon come in. Tilcon gave 300,000, 400,000, whatever. I did start working on quotes to see if we could bring it down, but you're looking at 200,000 easy per school. So your 140 is not going to get you any, and there's no use doing patchwork. The entire surfaces need to be made.
Okay, but the original 90,000 was only Jerome Harrison patching
To patch Jerome Harrison.
a couple years ago.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
the numbers that came in now that are from Tilcon,
Yeah.
so is Jerome still the main focus? Or,
Both schools are. Both schools are the main focus. Listen, you know.
but if you had to pick one, because we couldn't do them both, because we didn't do the work 3 years ago, so now, you know,
They're
we're
both
3 years.
bad. They were bad 3 years ago. They were bad 3 years ago. Listen, they're not gonna last. I mean, we pick a series of roads every year and we do them. There's no difference. It's town property, they're parking lots. They're not gonna last forever. No, you're gonna have to decide, are you gonna do them or not?
Well, we don't have, okay, so we don't have numbers though.
Well, you have Tilcon's numbers, which in my opinion, and the public works were.
No, we don't have it, we weren't supplied any numbers, that's what I'm saying.
We can give you the numbers from Tilcon. I can give you the numbers of the first paver that got back to me with his prices. I'm still waiting for other vendors that haven't gotten back to me yet, but I do have 2 quotes. I have Tilcon's quote, and I have a local vendor's quote.
So are these bids that went, these,
They're not bids.
they're not bid?
They're not bids. What happened was, we just did a walkthrough with Tilcon,
Estimate quotations.
okay?
So it's
So
just
they did an
it's
estimate.
just a guesstimate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not a guesstimate. Tilcon gave us their quote.
Yeah, it's probably pretty solid.
Yeah.
Okay.
The local vendor, we walked through and did the same exact thing we do with Tilcon. This is what we want to pave, this is the amount of curbing, this is what we do. They sent theirs in. We wanted to see what the balance was between Tilcon and the local paving company.
That would be a
Now,
good thing to
The
share.
other paving company's gonna
What was the
listen,
balance?
paving's not any different, they go by the square foot, whatever. The quotes are not gonna be that different. But right now, you're looking at 200,000 plus to do either school. I don't know if the town wants to bond the whole project or do the both. That's up to you guys.
Well, so if we can get those numbers, so that we can, you know, if we have to adjust this, because on capital, that's the one item on Board of Ed that we can adjust.
I can give you the numbers tonight of Tilcon and the local paver, the local paving company that I got. I can get you the rest of the quotes when they come in.
I'd say you do that.
Yeah, if you can just give them to the town manager, he can copy, scan, and send them to us,
Not a problem.
so that's fine. It's just,
Not a problem.
we don't have them, so we can't decide on, not that we're deciding on it tonight, but it's just
No,
additional information that we
We need
need,
information.
so we can just, you know, move it along.
Got it right.
Okay, great.
So if you go into the air conditioning,
Yes,
going back to what you talked about,
yes.
would that bring everything up to code?
At Jerome Harrison,
Yes.
that will bring us up on that one section. Jerome Harrison is a split system. There's a cooling tower and chiller that do the entire building with the exception of the gymnasium. The gymnasium has a separate air conditioning system. That's what's failing. The one that does the gym, not the one that does the school, the one that does the gym.
Okay.
So that's the replacement of that. The other one we asked for a capital request, and we were told that one, if you had to pick one or the other, which one would you pick? The other one's the auditorium. The auditorium has two units. One unit does the auditorium building itself. One does the auditorium zone, the performance center that's in the middle of the building. That's the one that's the problem. The one that does the auditorium proper, not the building itself.
And the other schools? I mean, take out the high school and take out...
Take out the high school, the Dubuque school were functioning fine. Jerome Harrison, that piece of equipment is the worst. The chiller's up to snuff. We've done major repairs on the chiller. Cooling tower's brand new. The air handling units we service every year. Every
And TVES,
quarter.
that would pass?
TVES has a very small HVAC system. Well, the one that does the library is giving us trouble. That's a rooftop unit. The one that does the offices and the cafeteria are operating pretty decent. That only has 3 rooftop units for AC. The rest of it is done by the unit ventilators that we're swapping out. So we'll get A+ on the new classroom ventilators. Because they're split hydronic heat and air conditioning. So that'll be good. Rooftop units will be a little iffy.
Maybe, okay.
And of course, Stanley T. Williams doesn't have any HVAC systems at all. They're all strictly hydronic heating, and they have small HVAC systems on the Park Rec side that does the gymnasium and some of their rooms. Board of Ed side has split units.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we'll be in good shape when we have the engineers come in.
That's what I want to
There's
know.
been a ton of maintenance work done over the years. We're up to snuff. We change our filters every quarter to the highest work level we can reach. The equipment will handle. There's a lot of maintenance.
And
A lot of maintenance.
I want to thank you for the hard work that you do. We know that you're stretched very thin.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're on to the operational budget on the town side. Mike, you don't necessarily have to stay. If you would like to leave, you are more than welcome to leave. So I went through the budget department by department, and I have all of my notes. So I'm just going to start, and the questions that I have on each department, I will bring up, and then if anyone has any questions regarding that department, you're more than welcome to ask if I didn't cover it. And then if there's any department I didn't talk about, you're welcome to ask the questions as we go along. So I'm just going to start. So the first one is Mayor and Council, Department 4103. It's line number 51630, which is Clerk to the Council. And I just need you to look in that because right now I believe it's figured at how many meetings she does a year. But since we changed our meeting schedule, I think that needs to be adjusted. Because we're still at, I believe the budget book had 28. And if we're down to 1 meeting a month and then a couple extra in there, I just adjusted. I think adjustment needs to be made to go down to 16 meetings instead of the 28 that's in there.
Makes sense.
And then line 55990, other contractual, And there's an item in there for other things like pins, plaques, and flowers, and it's budgeted at $3, which I don't know what we're going to buy for $3. I think it's a typo.
Can't much.
So,
We hunt for bargains, but, yeah.
I don't know if they're dead flowers that we're sending people that don't cost anything or what, but if you can just give us a number as to what has to go in there, what you were thinking for that item. The next department I had was Finance, Department 4117. Line item 55990, other contractual. And it's the topic of the past several months, Munis. Additional training for $5,000. So I noticed later on in the budget, we have $50,000 budgeted for software, which is the regular maintenance, and this is all the new programming that we have. But given the training history that we've discussed, is there any possibility that we can ask them that they owe us more training and not have to budget for additional training?
Certainly. You can always ask. Yep.
Okay, the next department I have is Central Services, Department 4129. So the first question I have, because this will affect multiple departments, is on line item 56260, motor fuel and lubricants. So is this price a negotiated price through Public Works? Or does it go out to bid? Are we locked in? How do you get the pricing on that for all of the departments? Because they seem to be consistent. So I didn't know if it's a number Franny provides or how you're getting that.
No, purchasing does that.
Okay, and is it a bid?
Yeah.
Okay, so are we locked in?
Not yet. Mike has been monitoring, and it's actually been moving in the right direction, so he's planning to lock in shortly.
So the price that is used in the budget is what, current pricing or anticipated pricing?
I believe it's current pricing.
I think it's anticipated for next year that he got from East Shore.
East River. East River?
East River.
Okay.
Got Mike in the mind, sorry.
That's
Okay. Then in Central Services, under line item 55500, printing and binding, there's a cost in there for printed letterhead. Do we need printed letterhead, or don't we just use electronic?
Mostly using electronic. I mean, we do print off some, but we mostly do that in-house.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult budget year, just so that the people can understand. And I know some of these might be small ticket items, but you get enough of those $1,500, $2,000 items, and it'll make a little bit of difference. And I mean, right now, the way the budget stands, in case people need a reminder, we are looking at a 3.89 mil increase, which all of the council, I am safe in saying, know that that is not going to fly. And so we have to look for everything. And so I know letterhead is in there for $1,500, but I thought it was all electronic. And if we don't have to print it, or we can print it in-house, that would be a proposed cut for me.
Black and white for a year.
Huh?
Black and white for a year. Laser printer.
Rose, are you actually making that cut or no?
No, we're not making any cuts tonight. It's just my suggestion right now at things that we need to look at. And if there's, if someone comes back and tells us, no, we can't do that, then we won't make. But when we put our list of cuts together, if no one has said anything, that one will be on it. And then line item 57390, building equipment, replace all HVAC units. So didn't we just do that? I thought we just spent $6,000, $1,500 a piece So are these other ones that are being done? And do they all have to be done at one time?
They're wall units, so $1,600 is one unit.
Right, so there's four of them in the budget at $1,500.
Then you go little by little around the building, ones that die, and that's the newer price, that's the cheaper price. So when they go, then you have something to it.
So do we have these purchased and we wait for them to die, or we just replace them ahead of time?
We usually wait for them to die, and then you have like one stock.
Okay, and do we have to replace all of them? Do we have to budget four for next year, or can we cut that back? And we're going to base it on your assessment of the condition of them. You can think about it, you don't have to give us an answer tonight, but that's one of the things I looked at. Okay.
There might be some that are bad, and that's why.
Okay, I mean, and that's fine, I just,
Trying to find the cuts where we can.
yep. Okay, tax collector, Department 4135, line item 53510, data processing. So it's a fee to R. Walsh, an associate for the assessor and the tax collector. So they each have approximately the same dollar amount. Do they have different modules that we have to pay the 12,000 plus for each department? Or, because they're each using R. Walsh Associates?
Right. They're the last two on the R. Walsh programs. So they put in the cost 50/50.
So the total cost is approximately 25,000, and you split it between the two departments?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Hold on.
All right. Town attorney, Department 4139, under litigation, and it's for contract negotiations. How many are we scheduled for? How many do we have coming up for 24, 25?
3.
3?
Yep.
Okay. And did we have 3 last year?
No. We didn't have any last year.
Because there was, I think there was 25,000 in the budget for last year for the same thing, contract negotiations. So that's why I was just wondering how many we had. Like, because we can't have that many each year.
Right, no. I mean, last year, during my time, we didn't have any contract negotiations. This year, we have 3 that are coming up. That are
Okay,
in
so,
process. Yeah.
so in this year's budget, we might have money left over then. And if we budgeted 25,000 for this year and had no contract negotiations in there, then we might have money left over that we can move forward.
Sure.
Okay, no problem. Technology, Department 4143, line item 55990, under other contractual, is Dropbox for $1,500. And I know we've gone over to Microsoft Office 365 that has OneDrive, which is a shared drive, which is part of the program. So do we need Dropbox?
Negative.
Kill it.
Okay,
Strike it.
all right. Planning Department, Department 4153, 320 other contractual. So it's for near map, which is what we just approved in, I believe, February. Did our contract start in February of this year with near map for the 7,500? Is Dave or Dan?
Dave has a PNC.
Pardon me?
Dave's at a PNC meeting tonight. I'm not sure about that.
Because I think the contract just started and it's for a year. So, and I know we're splitting, the near map was split between the assessor's budget and the planning department because they both use it. So the 7,500, they split between the two departments. But if we just started the contract in February, it should go for a year, for next year, because we approved $7,500. So in next year's budget, we should only have to budget $3,750 to get us to the June, because half of the year's already covered. Correct? So if you can just look at that, look that up and see if
Sounds right. We'll check it.
Okay. Elections, Department 4197, line item 51620, part-time, which is an increase of approximately $25,000, which is about 40%. So is this due to the early voting, extra elections, all of that stuff? And is there any state funding to offset the additional costs because of the early vote, which is new?
They have a grant now, 10,500 that they were given, because early voting starts with the primaries. They have till the end of this fiscal year to use it, or the end of this calendar year. However, it's unknown if additional funding will be coming from the presidential election.
So was that $10,000 grant used to offset any of that increase?
It's shown in the grant revenue. It's not shown in the department.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'd be buried in that number. So it's shown in the revenue section under grant revenue.
Okay.
Currently, they use part of the grant money to offset the presidential primaries we just had in April.
Right, okay. Benefits, insurance, and other, Department 4199, line item 52020, employee leave liability. What exactly is that?
That is when employees terminate and they have vacation on the books or sick time on the books. That's where those extra amounts are charged versus the department that they lived in.
Okay, so as of January 31st of this year, which is 7 months into our fiscal year, approximately 30% of the budgeted amount of $120,000 was used up to that point, so we have 5 months left.
Correct.
Do we expect to reach the current budgeted amount for this current year? And is 120,000, which is budgeted for next year, a realistic number, or can that be?
Well, if you look at the 2 years previous, it was 110 roughly. Last year was 86. It's a wild card. You don't know who's going to leave, what kind of pot they have in their account, how much sick time, vacation time they have. So we've used 120 for several years as kind of a safeguard, like I said, because if you go back 2 years ago, it was 110. So it's this year, you're 100% right. We've only got 34 through January. Are anybody going to leave between now and June 30? I know a couple people are leaving. What kind of bank do they have built up? I don't have top of my head, but there may be others leaving. It's hard, you can't really gauge when people are going to leave and what kind of bank do they have.
Okay, so the ones that you know that are leaving, can you get that information, just bring it forward, and then we can kind of decide if we want to keep the 120 for next year?
I'm with it.
Okay. All right, and in that same account, 52,200, the pension and social security allocation, there's a huge credit to that one item. Is it because it was broken out now into the individual for fire, pension, police, all of that stuff?
You are, yep. The only thing you'll see living there is that second item down, the defined benefit for the remaining 5, I believe, town employees. The other ones go back to the departments. The decision was made several years ago not to put those in the departments based on the size of the percentage of wage for those remaining 4 or 5 defined benefit people. That was a change that was made several years ago.
Yeah. So, and in those budgeted amounts for next year, are the actuarial estimates, that are given to you?
Yep.
Those are included in those numbers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
To go back to your other comment before, if you turn to page 19 in your book,
in what
the
book?
state grants, you'll see on the top section, the early voting grant of $10,181 in the current year received.
Okay, in the green book?
Yeah, green/yellow/
Yeah, okay.
Page 19, the state grants, early voting grant, $10,181.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Police Department, Department 4201. Okay. Just to make note here, so on what was presented, what was passed by the Police Commission, brought forward to the town manager, there has already been $42,000 cut from that budget on there. And so the whole thing with motor fuel and lubricants, that's all through purchasing, those pricing, right? So if that changes, will it automatically change for all the departments that are affected by that?
I will make sure it changes. Once we get concrete numbers from Mike Fumiati, I'll make sure they change across all the departments that have
Okay.
prices.
Okay. And one of the other things that we've talked about, all due to Munis, is, you know, the paper flow, invoicing, how the whole thing works. And in talking to Franny, since he is the Director of Public Works, and on facilities maintenance, his department actually tracks all of the maintenance requests for facilities, whether it's library, Public Works, Park and Rec, Central Services, Police Department, all of those things go through a work order, and he tracks it all and buys the supplies, everything else. And have we looked at moving all of the facility maintenance from all of those departments over to Franny's budget? And each department would be listed, so whatever they have in their budget goes, but he's controlling everything. He's buying the supplies, and we would eliminate the whole issue of having multiple people having to approve invoices, moving them back and forth, because everything would go to Franny, because he is the one that is, his department is the one that's doing it. So, Franny, do you want to speak to this, please?
Everything that, obviously, that gets done at all facilities comes through the departments, all, send it.
Does he need that microphone? Well, they can probably just hand that microphone to you, just so that.
So, all the departments put requests into our upkeep, we have an upkeep program that's how we send out our maintenance guide, where they have to go, I mean, we got, how many requests now? There's like over 100 requests now. So, when Kenny goes out and buys parts, it's all our accounts, Public Works, our monies, the departments don't have accounts of the power, the electrical sales, the plumbing places, the heating. And so when we get a bill, Kenny signs it, I sign it, and then it goes up to the department head to sign it, and then it makes its way down to Anthony's department. So, I mean, we're just cutting out the department head. The department head's still gonna have that request stuff, Jesse would request a light out, or installing boards on the walls, or even parking lot lights. So they all send requests to us, even if it's beyond, even if for Dan, maybe the parking lot. So we get charged for it anyway. So I think it's just simple, making it simple. They don't really need to see the bill.
Right. Okay.
And then we can give them reports off the upkeep of their department, and how many requests, and what, if they want to know how much money they spend, or.
Okay.
So that upkeep program does all that.
We can make that happen.
We can make that happen? Great. Okay. So the ones that I found it in are Central Services had facilities maintenance for $12,150. The Police Department has $6,300. My only question on that one is for facilities maintenance, since the Police Department is scheduled to move into their new building in June, so hopefully they'll be in there in July at the start of the fiscal year. There's electrical and plumbing in that building facilities maintenance account. But since it's a new building and the building should still be under warranty, correct? For the first year, do we really need to budget that? Okay, I mean, there were some other things in facility maintenance that we would just, there's certain things, but those two items, electrical and plumbing, which totaled $3,200. Okay. 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 All right. The other thing is on still in police department, equipment maintenance and tire replacement. So between those two accounts right now is budgeted $28,050. So I know we have an extra duty account where money, as you pay for road jobs that are done, that's where the administrative fee goes that's charged to the account because of the pension and all of those things. Is that a separate account? Because I know there's also a charge assessed for vehicle use, right? Does it all go into one account or are there two separate accounts?
There's two separate accounts. The vehicle use, we raised that a couple of years ago. Jim maybe can help me. I think it was, say we charge $100 an hour for the car. I'm just picking a number. How much is it? That's close enough. $25 an hour for the car. A piece of that offsets maintenance. A piece of that offsets gas. And then the balance goes into a separate reserve account over here. $10. So that's part A. That's the other pot of money that is out there if you want to look at the vehicle. The extra duty piece is a separate fund that when an officer A does a job and gets paid, he gets paid out of that fund. Terry then sends a bill to UI, wherever the contractor is, and the money goes back into that fund to replenish it. Now, the situation you mentioned about the pension, there are situations where if it's a DB employee, they get pension on those wages. If it's a DC employee, defined contribution, they don't get pension on those wages. So there's money that's built up in there because we don't know at the beginning of the year who's doing those jobs. So
Correct.
we bill out, worst case scenario, and it happens to be a DC employee, that money builds up in that pot. I can get a number for you as to what's in there for Tuesday night.
Well, I'm more concerned about the car, the fund. So what is the balance in that?
Yeah, I get that for you.
Okay, because I'm looking at, if there's a couple $100,000 in that account, which is the last number that I heard, somewhere around 300,000.
That might be the extra duty fund. I don't know if that's the separate pot of the vehicle use piece. I have to check it.
Do you know what the pot is for the vehicle?
I don't know, it's probably around 150, 162,000.
It's not 300? Okay. Okay. So if we can get those numbers.
Certainly.
We're using one of those funds though to pay.
That we're using the fund, the one where the extra
Right.
duty, that pension, that there's only 6 town events.
Right.
That when they use extra duty, they don't get charged the admin fee.
It comes out of there.
It comes out of there, but before it can come out of there, Anthony has to let the council know that there's enough money in the account, and then we have to make the transfer. Okay. So I think we were up to date. The largest of those expenses is the Poco Fest,
And
but there's other
had
ones.
another point, when we vacate the old police department, move into the new police department, isn't there still a cost associated with the old police department on the book?
Who's taking care of that building?
Yeah, no, good point.
And I don't know if that can be,
Who takes care of is it back to Franny and the Public Works Department, or is it still on the police department books?
I don't know. Did you budget anything, Jimmy, in your budget for the old police department?
No.
I mean, it's not getting knocked down right away, so,
I know direction from the town to build the budget, so it's fine.
Right.
I'm not operating that building, so it's fine.
right, so it's
Right,
out of your
right,
operating
The question was
budget.
more to,
So,
the answer. There's a value there, right? I mean,
well, someone has to account
Right.
for the charges, so we have to figure out where those will go.
Once they vacate it, basically it becomes essential service, kind of like the old senior center. Once they vacated, it became essential service expense. So you have to make sure that in Mike Fumiati's budget, there's utility, there's fire alarm.
Right.
Costs are going to be maintained going forward. Even if it's a vacant building, you have to, keep insurance, insurance, things like that. So
Right. So if you can,
I'll double check with Mike.
yep, make sure whatever costs are associated with that they're built into the budget
Yeah,
on there.
got it.
Okay. All right, that takes it for police for me. Now on to fire department, Department 4203. Yep. On what? Yep. Yes, we are doing capital separate. Okay. Fire department, line item 51620, part-time wages. So there was a $17,000 increase in that from last year, and just what makes up that $17,000? Were there extra, were stipends increased? Were there extra things in that budget? Fire 4203. Which,
Yeah,
are you talking?
the new item in there is the officer stipends at $100 for the 19 departmental officers that we have. Those are captains, lieutenants, who we rely on heavily, a little bit more than the regular firefighters. They're responsible for maintaining their company's assets, their records, and $100 was felt to be a nice gesture to say, we appreciate the extra effort that you're doing as an officer, and that's why that's in there. The stipends did increase. You'll see they're at $1,100 proposed. Those were put in place in 2000 when the Public Act was passed to allow for volunteer fire relief at $1,000. We phased it in North Branford. We did, I think it was $500 in the first year. We did $750 for 3 years, and then I think the 5th year it went to $1,000. In 15-16, I believe it was raised to $1,020 annually. And so proposal now is, again, we rely very heavily on our volunteer firemen. And if you look at some of the situations that our neighboring towns are facing with declining volunteer fire personnel, I think an $80 per year is it's money well spent. For to go from $1,020 to $1,100 per member. To go back to that public act that was passed back in 2000, the latest version of that public act talks about up to $2,000 of tax relief that a volunteer fireman can get. So we're still significantly lower than what the state statutes discuss. And again, it's just been something that the town put in place in 2001 at $500. It ramped up to $1,000 in 2005. And then I believe it was 15-16, it went to $1,020 per year. And I'm proposing to go to $1,100, just an $80 per member increase over prior years.
Okay. Retirement, line 52,300. So I know we just passed the new pension agreement, increasing the age, and the actuarial gave us numbers as to, and the plan that we picked is cheaper. I mean, there was some cost savings in regards to that. But I think it was lower than the amount that's in the budget book, correct?
You are correct. The discussion at the finance meeting was, even though the actuary has proposed a lower number, the discussion was made to keep it at the same number until we get some track record of how, are people actually going to stay past 65, start their pension past 65, stay till 70? Until we get some track record, the discussion that was held at the finance meeting was keep it where it is and don't recognize that savings. We can certainly recognize the savings and gamble. I'll pull the numbers out what they actually were. It was I think $20,000. It was significant savings by recall.
We need everything we can get.
Okay.
And I mean, we are not fully funded on any of our pension plans
Oh God, no.
anyway. And so I think for a year or two, but we do fully fund whatever the recommendation is
Yes.
to put into the pot.
Yep.
We do that. But I think we need to realize the savings on it.
If you recall, I think what happened at the fire commission meeting, they had endorsed the savings, and the budget that was presented and we discussed back in finance, discussion was, well, you don't really know if that's going to be accurate or not, put that money back in. So the fire commission did take advantage of the savings, but later it was decided to not take advantage of the savings, but we'll take advantage.
Yes. No one knew what the budget was going to look like at that point in time either.
Yeah.
So, line item 310, equipment maintenance.
Yes.
We're budgeted at $85,000, and our new tower truck is online now, and in past budgets, we were always told that that was costing us a lot of money each year, but now that we have our new tower online, can that be adjusted down?
Yes. Recognize that that's one truck out of 18.
No, I know, but
And if you look, I think last year, the last report I had from 22-23, I think engine 1 was our highest per apparatus maintenance cost. So I have a list from the last fiscal year that's completed. I'll share with you guys.
I mean, if we can cut 10,000 or 15,000 out of it, I'm not looking to cut the whole thing,
Yeah, no, I got
but
We're easy.
we need to look.
Yep.
Again, if you look at the track record on that account going back, it was 105 2 years ago.
And we had the old tower one, and we replaced it now, so it's online now. That's why we bought it, because we were spending a lot of money, so.
The rest of the fleet is aging.
Right, but.
I know.
There was repairs to it. One might have ended, but they're not gonna end on engine one.
And that's why we're not cutting everything out of the budget, but if we can cut something.
On replacing what there's there. Trying.
Okay, on line item 320, other contractual, under the contractually obligated firehouse cost, is there what does that cover, what is that for, what are the contractually obligated firehouse cost? And is there an automatic annual increase to it?
Negative. In the leases that the 3 fire companies that own their buildings individually have with the town, there's a clause that says, primarily it's the garage door openers. If the garage door openers fail, the motors burn up or the tracks fail, they need adjustment, they can't get the apparatus out. So when the leases were created, maybe 2 cycles ago, there was a concept of saying, okay, if the garage door opener fails, that's going to get your apparatus out of my firehouse, Mr. Town, you're responsible for fixing it. So periodically throughout the year, in company 1, 2, or 3, there'll be a garage opener that fails, the springs break on the doors, there's maintenance that needs to be done, and that's what that money funds.
Okay,
So it's not an annual increase, it's just a guess number as to, based on what we've done in the past. The garage door openers are not cheap. Are you talking about commercial grade garage door openers and the spring? It's probably maybe 2 or 3 openers there. That's all you're going to get out of that, with the installation and everything else. So.
Right. So have a lot of them, I mean, are.
Every year. Every year there's some. Again, you got probably you probably got 18 doors you're covering theoretically of garage doors going up and down multiple times a day in some cases. So, are there going to be a couple that break every year? Unfortunately, yes. And the agreement that the town has with the fire companies is we'll cover that repair cost for the garage door openers.
Okay. And so we do it, the town is in charge, I mean, the town,
We either hire a contractor or we allow them to hire, they have each firehouse may have a particular vendor that they've used, and they send the bill to the town. They approve the work, they send the bill to the town, and it gets paid.
okay. All right. Under line item 57,390, technical equipment. So it's at 65,000, which is what it was last year also. So what are the planned purchases for 24, 25? That cover,
There are two main pieces out of that. The first is fire gear. We are running about $3,000 per set to outfit a firefighter. We have probably, I believe it's 10, maybe 12 sets from 2014. There's a 10-year lifespan that we have to replace fire gear. So during 2024, those 10 sets are going to go. So there's 30,000 off the bat. Annually we test fire hose. We have an outside company that comes in and tests fire hose. If any fails, we have to replace that. We test the ladders at the same time. If any of those fail, we have to replace that. So it's more of the larger scale items that we need to run the fire department. Fire gear being the primary one, and hose being nozzles, large scale equipment.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is because we still have some ARPA money left.
Correct.
And if we wanted to expend, get rid of the albatross around our neck of ARPA money,
Yes.
that is fire gear an allowable expense under?
Well, remember that we are below the $10 million threshold, so it's carte blanche.
Oh, okay.
There's
So
no-
if you need it, so.
It's up to you guys.
Okay, 10 outfits would be $30,000 on there.
Plus
So
one.
that, right. So if that was one of the things you were going to buy out of that $65,000 and we gave you ARPA funding, we could reduce the budget by that amount of money for this year,
That's correct.
Okay.
Did we not do that last year?
No.
We didn't give them any money for?
Well, we gave them money, but not for,
Not for-
they got various things out of the
Right.
ARPA.
Okay.
But we still have some money that we want
fully
to
aware of.
spend,
We have
and
to
if
get
we
rid of
can
it.
reduce some of our operating budget and take care of that, that will help the mill rate on there. Okay. Ambulance, Department 4225. So the estimated savings from the way we now fill the shifts compared to what we were doing, do we know what, because I think it just started, I don't know how long ago you started doing that, and do you have any history or anything as far as how much you're saving, and has that been figured into next year's budget?
Yeah, we're very fortunate in the price obviously for contract labor to be the EMT driver versus our own members for the EMT driver is significantly lower for our own people to do it. And since we put this in, you remember when we first put it in place, it was a rocky road. When we first put the second car online last July, there was a large number we were paying for the contractor EMT pieces. But it's very noteworthy the volume of EMT driver shifts from our own members. I can create a schedule for you to show what we were paying prior to, I would say, July of 23, the second car went online. July 22? Second staff car, 23. So I'll make a spreadsheet for you showing the cost. But the answer is yes, the numbers are built into there showing the amount of the volunteer payment versus the contractor payment at a reduced number. The budget we're running about 15 to 18% of the contract labor driving currently. My budget, I think we built it on 25 or 30%, again, trying to be conservative. Is there room to cut it? I know Mike already took a little bit of money out. Could you cut it again a little more? Potentially. I'll get a number for you, what I think is reasonable.
Thank you. I mean, right now, last year we were at supplementing the ambulance at 725,000, and now proposed is 925,000. 200,000 is a big number. And I know we've run in the red in the past, but it still functions and it still operates. The general public will not know. They will not lose any services on there. And so I think that's something we need to look at. Technical equipment for ambulance is in at $5,000. Is there a specific need there? Is there a specific item for that, or is that just a line item just in case?
I will have to get back on that.
That's fine. Building department, Department 4213, line item 55990, other contractual, which is for outside services if needed. So right now, as of July or January 31st, only 46% of the budget, actually 46 of the budgeted amount of 16,000 is projected to be spent by June 30th of this year. So can that amount be adjusted for next year? I don't know what kind of projects you have online.
I believe it's for special reviews if they become necessary for larger projects. We need to hire an outside consultant. So unless there's anything on the books for that, I'm not aware of any right now, but if anything comes up, we have to be considered.
Right, but so at this point, if only approximately half of that is going to be spent by June of this year, and if it's for special projects, I don't know what is on the book. I mean, I don't know of anything right now besides the building that, unless we have some big developer come in and start doing some work on there. So can you come back and give us an amount that we might be able to cut that down by on there? Okay, great. Animal control, Department 4215. So I know we're in the new contract with East Haven. The contract started out at $135,000 and called for a 4% increase, but it also said that they would give us a copy of their proposed budget in the beginning of March. Did we receive that?
We did not.
Okay. Can you just reach out to East Haven? Because it said we would receive the proposed, and then once it's finalized, we would get the final in May. Public Works, Department 4301. So just so everyone knows, this budget was also cut by the town manager, and there was $40,000 already taken out of this budget. That is already out of there. In line item 51610, which is your salary account, let me just go to that, my budget book here. So I know we approved last year a highway person, but I see in the list, so did you fill that position? Because I see vacant entry level in this year. So you don't have a vacant position?
Currently?
Yes.
Yes, we do at the lower level.
Right, but there's no dollar amount in the budget. It says zero. In our budget book. in our budget book, it has 0, so I just need to, so what positions do you have vacant right now? The highway and a groundskeeper?
It's technically a groundskeeper, but it's funded under the vacant highway fund. That's the law. So that number is right. We're at the same rate.
Which one, the 60,907?
No, the 59,717.
We-
That's the vacant position.
We don't have that. We have an amount in here for groundskeeper vacant at 60,907, and there's 0 next to the Highway 1 vacant and entry level in our budget books. So I just want to make sure that we're accounting for all of the staff that has been approved.
Reversed in ours, but that's the right number.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And in seasonal, line item 104, why is there such a huge decrease? You went from like 300,000 in this year's budget to 32,000 for next year.
It's not like that on the first page, though.
Okay, in our detail, that's what's showing here, so I just want to make sure we,
Yeah, so seasonal actually, on the first page, last year, it was budgeted at $0, because that money was in the part-time line item. So we separated them this year, because part-time and seasonal are technically different workers.
okay.
That's why it's like that on that second page, I don't know.
It's a huge number. I mean, it just stuck out when I was going through how you had that much for seasonal and then going down to nothing, basically. But the top page is correct, you said? Let me just see one.
Top page is correct, at the 32,512.
So Anthony, is that,
It's picking up the wrong cell in the formula.
so what's correct? The top page?
The front page, yeah, the main page.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And also, for seasonal help here, you have a rate of $16. Is that what you're going out at? Because minimum wage is going to increase in January, and it's going to go over $16. Right now, it's $15.69, and every October, the state is going to have a CPI index increase on minimum wage. So even at a 3%, it's going to go over $16. So I think that needs to be increased in the budget. Just to be, so you're covered.
We can increase that. I mean, to be honest, we have to lessen the hours a year.
It doesn't matter. You can, if you have to increase it to 17 to cover, it's not going to be that. But I think it just needs to reflect what is going to happen. And we all know it's going to go up in January. Okay. In health, Department 4401.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Before you get too far, I got a signal from our maintenance guy. So we have one unit, air conditioning unit in stock.
Okay.
And then if you count the other ones, there's 10 units left in the building that haven't been touched, but are working.
Okay.
And then we always have the $50,000 emergency fund, something that happens, so.
Okay.
we want to cut those out.
Thank you. Okay, so health, 4401. So we recently gave money, there was a request by Louisa Breen in our social services department for the community fund. And this was established back in the 1990s and was originally funded by the town council. And it has since gone to the wayside, and she has to rely on private donations for that account, for that. And the community fund directly affects it helps just North Branford residents, North Branford, Northford residents. on there. So I see that we give money, we allocate money to the community dining room. And is this to service just North Branford people, to the community dining room?
As far as the community dining room serves the Shoreline, David Branford, North Branford. And the last I knew, which was October, November, they provided meals to 7 people out of their 13,000.
7, you said?
7.
7.
So my question would be is if we took that $2,000 that we give to the community dining room and put into the community fund that we just gave some ARPA funds, would you be able to service those 7 people in addition to other things with that money on there?
I think we could do, the senior center and myself, Jennifer and myself had a conversation about how we can do that. And we could do a couple of different ways by, some people may receive meals from the community dining room, maybe on finance, they can afford to shop. We can do gift cards. We can have the optional to have and have the community gift funds paid for the meals. By doing that, they're not only getting a nutritious balanced meal, but they also increase socialization and preparing for the mental health of all persons, not just seniors. And then we may be able to get them active at the senior center, you know, they're there, they get activities. So I think it's a win-win if we can provide the service.
Look at this, look at the way we stand. It's like,
It's good for nutrition, it's good for mental health, it's good for activity.
Well, and I know what was explained to us on the ARPA request is that community gift fund is not paid to the specific person, it's paid directly to the vendor on there. So, and this would definitely service just North Branford. The money would stay in town and service. Right.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
All monies from community gift fund have to stay in the town. Actually, it has to benefit a citizen of the town. But the vendor doesn't necessarily be in the town. So, you know, sometimes it goes GBY or whatever. So it's not like vendor, but Homeland Security also requires that all money stay in the United States. And I have to document that. And those funds, there's no cash, everything is direct to vendor, or people make a request, it goes to finance, finance pays the vendor, and it's open to audit.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are you proposing to move that out of this line to an operating transfer out to go to the community gift fund?
That may be one of our requests later on, not tonight.
See if we can juggle it around first.
Got to see where we are after all of our thought process here. Okay, so library, facilities maintenance there. In your account, if we move it over, which it sounds like we are going to move it, let me see, 4501. Let me just. Okay, so there's a line item specifically just for building repairs and maintenance of $15,000 for library. The elevator service and the septic pump outs we would keep in the library budget, but for building repairs and maintenance of $15,000, I would move that over to Public Works under a line item there. And under, let me see, where did I see? Your books. I know in the past, the trust account has funded some of this. Is the trust account still in existence, and is that a possibility?
Yes, so we are taking 28,000 from the
Okay, so Anthony, that is already, is that in the grant? Or where?
Operating transfer in.
Okay. All right. And I know in your budget workshop with us, you had talked about salary increases. So are the salary increases already in your budget, figured in your budget, or do we have that under, would we cover that under contingency?
It's in the part-time budget, it's included in this budget for the part-timers. The full-timers are, their contract expires in June, and that hasn't been negotiated yet.
Okay,
So the part-timers, yes, included in this budget.
okay.
But the full-timers will be contingency.
Right, okay. All right. Community Center, Department 4401. So the town manager has already cut $10,000 from this budget also on there. So on building maintenance, 54301, I have 13,000 going over to Public Works out of that. Which I don't think it's your whole budget. It's probably for specific.
It's for HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. So again, total of 13,000.
Right, yes. So the other ones would stay with you. We would move those over. We also have to keep in mind that that is a very aging building also, and there are more plumbing issues that are coming up in that building. So just, I mean, they only budgeted $5,500. So there is something in there, but as things go on, we may need more money in there. Under park ground maintenance, 54303. So there's 25,000 in there, which is standard has been standard in the budget. But is there a separate account for playground or park maintenance from previous years that we're carrying around someplace?
Good question. There should be.
Not in this budget, it's the park maintenance reserve. I have no knowledge of the balance of that account, but it does operate under Public Works budget.
So
It's under Frank's jurisdiction for you guys because of funding within threshold.
right, okay. Can we just find out how much is in that account? Thanks. Okay. Reynold Beers House, Department 4507, just move that over to Public Works. It's $1,500. Public Celebrations, Department 4511. So the question to the council that you need to think about, and we've discussed this, is in 7 years, we have the 1831 celebration coming up. And do we want to put any money into this account?
Not this year.
Start it out or whatever.
Before you know it, it's gonna be,
It's gonna come up right on.
Right, said do it 5,000, 2,500, something in there. I know the account has been established. So we need to seriously start thinking about putting something in there.
Very much a scratching tickets.
And then the last one is reserve for contingency, Department 9800. And our budget book shows the reserve at $774,000.
That is an accurate statement.
That's an accurate one? And why is it so high?
As was alluded to by one of my colleagues here, we have the contracts all in negotiation status now. So the current year budget numbers, the wage numbers are what the current year is.
Right.
So any planned increase, the manager and I put a number in there that would reflect what their increase would be
So $680,000 for the 3 contracts? That's the increase?
It's possible, Chris.
Well, you have administrators as well. You got 3 union contracts plus administrators. Everybody's at their current.
No, I know. So what are the 3 contracts that are up?
Clerical, police, and library.
Yeah, clerical, police, library, and administrators.
What's the total number of employees about?
The total for those 4 items is 599,264.
Yes, the total number of employees.
Employees, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Stand by. Not stand back. Your appendix. $122, 77 full-time, 45 part-time.
Okay. I was
Thank you.
really hoping that that was a typo.
Yeah, right. That'd been fun.
Okay, so after I went through, and these are just all my notes, and the rest are welcome to ask any other questions or have any other thoughts. It's fine with me. But, so the town manager has already cut approximately $92,000 out of the budget. And there's 2 departments that I'm going to ask for you to come up with some additional cuts and present them to us. And it doesn't mean that you need that necessarily they will be made, because we're going to go on your suggestions. If you come up with more than what the request is, you get bonus points. No, I'm just kidding. So, fire department, and we talked about these already. Equipment maintenance is one of them. Part-time wages, and that. So I'm looking at $25,000 from fire department. Library, $10,000. And I know Public Works already had $40,000 cut from their budget, but if you can take a little closer look, Franny, and 25. And remember, this does not mean that it is going to get cut. We just want you to come back with suggestions to us to come up to that amount or larger. And then from there we can develop if we're going to make what cuts we would make out of your suggestions. We just found it much easier last year to have it ahead of time so Anthony can work on getting all of the motions with all of the account numbers that are now 25 digits long, ready for us. And then we can discuss and decide if they would all go through or not, in addition to all the other things that were brought up tonight. So that concludes my part of the budget. I don't know, Craig, did I cover everything on your questions, or do you have more?
Those were all Craig's
You got it.
questions?
Craig? Yeah, the newbie.
Those were all his.
The newbie came up with, he did a great job.
Well, no, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yes.
This is,
I have everything earmarked, but I'm good, because we'll be here a lot. I'm good.
no, if you have questions, now's the time.
I'm fine.
to-
A lot of things were answered.
So you asked the 3 departments to slash 25,000, 10,000, and how much? And the other one?
25, so another 60,000.
Right. So that's out of the 3 departments, right? How about the other departments? You just went through line item by line item, but I'm sure that they can go back and maybe we should give them a number to see if they can slash a little bit more.
Well, like there's some items like in the police department that we need to get answers
Right.
in regards to these other accounts before we can
Okay.
before we can decide if we
I
want to
mean,
go.
because I believe last year you requested that all the departments come in for $50,000, each department. That was the
wasn't-
number that you asked for every department, and then, but they didn't come back and give you
But-
that
but-
number, but they
But
couldn't.
that, not every department, because some departments' budgets are only
Small,
$25,000.
but I
And
understand that, but
if
then-
they're $25,000 for next year, it's really hard to ask
Well,
them
I'm
to
just
come up
saying, I
with
mean-
something. But the town manager has already cut 92.
But we did that also last year.
No,
And
he
then you
did-
came back
no,
and you
they-
requested a little bit more. So basically, can they do a little bit more?
Yeah, so,
all.
Mike, you gonna give that $3 back or what?
Yes, you have to.
I'll cough it up.
I'm sorry, Rose, I'm just, like, we did this last year, same thing. And
We'll do it again next year.
can they do it again this year? Just not just by the line items, can they go back and sharpen their pencils a little bit more? For each department,
yeah,
for each department, not just for those three.
well, I mean, if any of the other departments, because some of them, there are things, but we're waiting for other information.
I get it. So, I mean, that's my question. Can departments go back and sharpen their pencils? Every department.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so Mike can put out a directive.
I mean, I just wanted to
I know
point
it's
out,
hard.
to reiterate, I mean, police department, they really leaned forward. They gave up 42.
I can't hear up here.
Sorry. Maybe I should use the mic. Yeah. I would just point out that with a number of the departments that I asked for, the police department in particular, I asked for 25 and they gave up 42. I want to point out that Park and Rec gave up 10,000 already, and Public Works has already given up 40. So just keep
I
that
get
in
it.
mind in the request.
Totally. Sorry, I'm not trying to be mean to them. It's just, it's gonna be it's a lean year.
Okay, so the only other thing that's left is capital improvements. And I think at this point in time, because we've been on this for 2.5 hours, capital, we can wait until we have a budget workshop on Tuesday night next week, where hopefully we'll get these answers back, so we can kind of go through and see once, and then we can also go on capital expenditures for any questions. I know John you gave Mike the stuff on the paving, right? So he can get us that. Okay. Yep. All right. So that is all that I have. Does anyone else have any question on the 24-25 budget? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.
It's your patience.
You gotta find 5.